Thanks for clicking back in with us this week as we analyze a full slate of Saturday college football games in less than 30 minutes right here on the OFN Today. We'll also update the latest injury headlines, odds, provide great historical trends, and, of course, our picks. For this Friday, the 4th of October, 2019, on the Ourlads Football Radio Network, brought to you by ourlads.com, providing the best pro and college football depth charts in the industry, and covers.com. Make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com. You could take 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. All right, so hopefully you were with us last week. That was the first show. And what we told you last week, kind of tell you again today, what we're going to do is each week, and right now it's been college football. I'm going to go over as many games as I can in 30 minutes or less. And next week, I promise next week, I'm going to get into a breakdown of conferences. This week, we're going to stick chronologically, starting with tonight's games and go into the tomorrow, Saturday, noon, and all the way through to the evening games. So we'll do it a little bit differently, the way I'd like it, but hopefully next week, we'll start breaking things down in conference order. Tonight, you've got the big AAC game. Now, this could be the biggest AAC game, actually, of the year. Well, first of all, it is the biggest AAC game of the year so far, of the season so far. But when it's all said and done, this could end up as one of, if not the biggest games, because these are two of the top teams. Central Florida, they have been the Goliath of this conference for the last couple of years. And, yeah, they finally lost a regular season game, losing to Pitt, but that's an out-of-conference game, so now they take on a Cincinnati team. A lot of people believe this is the team that could knock Central Florida off this season, so they get them at home tonight. That game's going to start in about an hour and a half. I'm taping this show right around 6:30 Eastern time. Now, keep this in mind. Central Florida, they had a winless season in 2015. I don't know if you remember that, how things have changed. Since then, they have beaten Cincinnati straight up and against the spread all 3 years by a 113 to 39 margin. That is like that's blowout city every time that these two teams get together. Hopefully, in Cincinnati, their point of view, they can make it closer. The thing I'm a little bit worried for Cincinnati tonight, their rush defense just isn't as good as it was last year, and their offensive line is also not as good. Now, their offensive line lost a couple of all-conference starters last year. So Michael Warren, his stats, he's probably about a yard less per carry so far this season. That's a surprise. But again, you do lose some key players. Defensive line has also been an issue for the Bearcats. They've lost 3 big-time starters. Actually, 4, or is it 3? I think it's 3 big-time starters on the defensive line, including Chargers draft pick Cortez Broughton. So that's showing as far as their rush defense. Right now, they're kind of middle of the pack nationally. A little bit better than middle of the pack nationally in rush defense. Last year, they had a top 20 rush defense, so keep that in mind if it gets a very good rushing team. Since Central Florida can go 4 deep, you got Otis Anderson, you've got McCray, you've got Killens, you've got the kid Thompson. So and the freshman, Gabriel, has been fantastic. He's holding the fort for Milton. What a luxury to have at Central Florida. They're favored by 4, Cincinnati plus 150 on the money line. Ritter had a big week last week for Cincinnati. As you remember, we liked them over Marshall last week, so they came through for us. This is a game that we're not touching tonight, but if I was taking the game, just history tells me I got to go with Central Florida. The other game tonight, San Jose State against New Mexico. Year 3 of Brett Brennan, the head coach. I think this is going to be his best team by far. They get the big win over Arkansas. They're going to struggle at times. They're still not a top-end Mountain West team. I'm not even sure they're going to make a bowl. But after a 1-win season, if they can get 4 wins this year, maybe even 5, I think it's a success. They got a veteran quarterback. The first time, by the way, that San Jose State has been an FBS favorite since 2016. Ouch. They're a 6.5-point favorite against the Lobos. All right, now let's get to the games tomorrow. AAC matchup, UConn, South Florida. I'm going to talk about this game because Charlie Strong's on his way out. We all know it. Writing's on the wall. When the writing's on the wall, what do? Well, look what happened to Chris Ash and Rutgers last week. I think that's what's going to happen with South Florida. Big difference. This is UConn, not Michigan. So South Florida will have a much better opportunity to win the football game, but they're a 10.5-point favorite. I've thrown the Huskies in as one of my double-digit upsets this week because Ed Saul, who was successful here some years ago, he's trying to rebuild something again. So they're on the upswing. They are beginning to build something. South Florida strong. He's going to get fired any game now. Maybe this is the game that finally gives him the boot. Now they've won 7 straight against the Huskies, but the Huskies have covered the last 3 years. Both teams have got quarterback injury issues. UConn more severe. They are on their third quarterback. Actually, the guy who started the season as the quarterback, Beaudry, is going to end up back in the starting lineup because Krajewski, who was their top recruit last year, gets injured after it looked like he had a pretty good week last time out. So they were getting excited about him to, all right, now maybe we could turn it over to him, and he gets hurt. And now with the broken clavicle, he's out 6 to 8 weeks, so we may not see him again. The other freshman, Zergiadis, started versus Illinois, Indiana. He's not the guy. He's also a little banged up, but will be the number 2. He'll be ready to go. But Beaudry gets to start after starting week 1 against Wagner, injured his shoulder. Now he gets the opportunity to start again. But I'm going to take the upset here and take UConn over South Florida. Penn State, great defense going up against Purdue. If Penn State's going to win some big games this year, and now I'm starting to think we got potential for that to happen. Thankfully, Sean Clifford had the breakout game we were waiting for last week. 398, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing against Maryland. Purdue's defense is just not good. They lose Bailey for the year a few weeks ago. Sindelar, the quarterback's out. Plummer's got to go up against his defense. The only thing they got going for him is a trend. Purdue has covered 11 straight as road dogs of 11 or more points. That's it. So only second road game of the season for Purdue. Penn State, meanwhile, they're going to counter the trend. 11-1 against the spread last 12 as a home favorite of more than 8 off a ATS win of 14 points or more. Tulane and Army. This one's also at noon. Homecoming for the Cadets. We talked about this on Thursday with Mitch Light on our college football show. Both of us a little bit surprised Army was getting 3 instead of giving 3. That's why it's Mitch's top pick. I like Army in the game as well. Second time Army's been a home dog since 2016. That just shows you how good Army's been. Look, we both like Willie Fritz a lot. We've praised him for the last couple of years. This is the best team he's had. This is just a good game. I just think Army's just. I think this is a home field game. I think that's how evenly divided I think this game is. These are two very good football teams. I wish Army was playing in the AAC. If they were, they'd be a contender for the championship. Army's covered 7 straight games versus winning teams, including the cover against Michigan this year that they almost won. Rutgers and Maryland. Now, this is one of Mitch's picks this week, and I'm a Rutgers guy, so being from New Jersey, I'm going to root for them. But, of course, I don't go that way. As you know, I've gone against Michigan as well, my favorite team, quite a bit, including a 5-star Wisconsin pick a couple of weeks ago. And I like Iowa this week as a 5-star. So I'm not going to be clouded by my heart. I think Rutgers has a shot here to pull off an upset, sort of like UConn. Nothing great, but I think it's worth it as a 4-1 money line there and about. Nunzio Campanelli takes over. He's a known commodity, let's put it this way, in high school football in New Jersey. He's very successful at that level. He's going to be able to recruit real well. That's why he was brought on as assistant for Ash. Will he become the head coach? Well, here's his opportunity to win the job. The players will play for him. Matter of fact, Langham, the quarterback who will start, not Satowski. Satowski's thinking about redshirting now. So Langham's going to get the start. Langham won the high school state championship in 2017 with Campanelli as his head coach. That's interesting. But I get the feeling, and this is because I am from Rutgers, New Jersey, I should say, and I follow this team for years. I know what's going on there. I just get the feeling with the way Maryland, they were just smacked around since the Temple game, reality set in, and Penn State destroyed them. Their confidence level just took a major hit. And here comes Rutgers, kind of, sure, they're coming off just the same kind of blowout, but they're kind of feeling, hey, we've got something to play for, new coach, something new. So I'm just going to say maybe Rutgers can pull something off here. But like I said, on more of a UConn level. Okay, let's go to a few more 12 o'clock games. Oklahoma State's a 10-point favorite over Texas Tech. Still no Alan Bowman. That's bad news for Texas Tech because Jet Duffy was terrible last week. They beat Oklahoma State. They upset them last year. 41-17 as a 14-point road dog. Now they get them at home, Texas Tech, but that's revenge in my mind for a Cowboys team that's a 10-point favorite and 4-0 against the spread. I'll take them to go 5-0. Something I've tried to stay away from are big point spreads, but I'm taking Wisconsin as one of my big point spreads this week. I just have to. They have buried non-conference competition by a 110-0 margin this year. 36 points. Kent State's terrible on defense. I don't know how they're going to stop them. I think it's going to be one of those 55-0 games. Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan. Now, this is an underrated MAC game. Eastern Michigan, as you know, we've talked highly about them with Chris Creighton. But we've also been high on Central Michigan lately. They didn't come through for us last week, but look, I watched the game. They were right there with Western Michigan. They just a couple of turnovers. They got stopped a couple of times inside the 20. That was a lot closer of a game than the point spread indicated. Central Michigan has covered 3 straight since being blown out by Wisconsin. The home team in this series has won the last 4 years. Central Michigan gets plus 190 on the money line as well, 6.5. And Central Michigan 7-1 against the spread the last 8 at home, off back-to-back straight-up losses versus an opponent off back-to-back straight-up wins. We're going to take Central Michigan. Iowa, Michigan. Iowa's going to be my 5-star over Michigan. They're getting 4. That's kind of why I like it. Unlike the NFL, points matter more. In other words, I always say 90% of the time, if I'm taking a team to cover, I'm also taking them to win in the NFL, or at least I know they can win. I feel confident they can win. In college, I don't always do that. This is a game that is, I have to see progress against a good football team. Iowa's too well coached. They're playing too good right now to not be in this game against a Michigan team that hasn't played well at all season. Forget the Rutgers game. Didn't mean anything. Even when they scored, they were kind of scores that didn't really impress me. They were scores that you could do against a high school team. That's why Chris Ash was fired. Iowa also, like Wisconsin when I took them a few weeks ago, has done well against Michigan in the recent past. They've beaten Michigan twice since they've played them. They've only played them twice since 2013. They've actually won 5 of 6 against Michigan, and this is actually the first time they're playing since 2016. Michigan was a 24-point favorite in that game, and Iowa beat them. So I'm taking Iowa plus the 4 as my 5-star. Let's go to, just going to mention Oklahoma, Kansas because it's Oklahoma, 31.5-point favorite. Last year they were a 35-point favorite against Kansas, and the score was 55-40. So just keep that in mind. TCU, Iowa State, this is one of my top picks. I believe this is my 4-star. Iowa State, 3 over TCU. They've covered 9 straight as a home favorite of less than 10 points the Cyclones has. TCU's 0-9 against the spread in their last 9 in the first of back-to-back road games. This is a big game for the program for Iowa State, and the fact that they have won 4 straight Big 12 home games, never 5. That's important. They've also covered 3 straight against TCU. I think they'll make it 4 straight and beat the Horned Frogs. Utah State, LSU. This was my sleeper. This was actually my pick to win the Mountain West Conference this season, Utah State. Jordan Love, you know how I feel about him. Burrow, LSU is actually my sleeper national championship pick. So you know what I feel about these two teams. Both quarterbacks, Love and Burrow, are going to be NFL sleeper pro prospects. Utah State's covered both games away this season. LSU's covered all 3 games this season. I just think the point spread's too much. If this was Boise State, I think this would be more like 20, something like that, maybe even less. I really believe that the way Boise State's playing, it would be with their respect. Utah State doesn't get that kind of respect yet. I think they should. I think they'll earn it. I'll take the 28 in that spot. At 12:30, BC Louisville. I don't know why BC is getting 6. I don't understand it. Louisville, their last FBS win versus an opponent other than Western Kentucky was Kentucky in 2017. That's a long time. They have beaten Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky this year. They're 1-12 against the spread. Their last 13 at home after they allow 35 or more points. BC, see, the problem is BC lost to Kansas. That's the problem. That's what's going on here. But I say this a lot, especially early on in the season, to remind everybody, what you always do when you're handicapping games for football, you draw a line through one game. You do the same thing in horse racing. You draw a line through one race. You got to draw a line through one game, just one, during the season. The reason you do that is because one game, especially in college, you're entitled for a bad week. You're entitled to take a week off. And you'll notice how different you look at a team when you draw the line through one game. That's what you do with Kansas and Boston College. If you take the Kansas game out and you go, okay, they're 3-1, and they've lost by 3 points to an undefeated Wake Forest team, and they're going to be a 6-point dog to Louisville? I don't get it. I'll take Boston College plus the 6, plus 170 on the money line. Let's go to the 3:30 games. Ball State, MAC opener, NIU. It's time for Ball State to win a big game in the MAC. It's also time for Mike New to have, if he wants to hold on to his job and turn the program around, this is it. Drew Plitt has been fantastic, the quarterback. He's 4th nationally in yards a game. The last time they visited DeKalb, they lost 63-17. NIU has won 10 straight against Ball State. They've covered 8 out of the last 10 and have covered 7 straight. So why would I go with Ball State? Plus the 5 or the plus 170. Well, NIU is 2-6 against the spread. Their last 8 is a home favorite. But I just think Ball State, when you take a look at what they've done this year, they battled against Indiana. They battled against FAU, could be the best team in the Conference USA. And they battled against NC State. They've done a pretty good job. Now, they got to win a game. And the spread, I think, is showing respect that they're only a 5-point dog. Baylor, Kansas State, the Wildcats are a 1-point favorite. Real good Big 12 game. The Wildcats are 13-0 against the spread. Their last 13 off a double-digit straight-up loss versus a 500 team or a winning team. That's what Baylor is right now. I'll take Kansas State -1. Notre Dame is the other team I'm taking with the heavy point spread. I hope I don't regret taking Notre Dame and Wisconsin this week. They're 46. I'm taking them because Bowling Green, I believe, could be. I think they're one of the bottom 5. They could be the worst team in college football FBS. And Notre Dame 3-0-1 against the spread. Bowling Green 0-3 against the spread. Also 3:30, Miami's a 14-point favorite against Virginia Tech. Miami's beaten the Hokies 4 out of 5 straight up and against the spread. Last 2 years by a 66-24 margin. Miami will host Virginia on Friday. That'll be a big one. Illinois, Minnesota. Now, I'm going to take Illinois in the points, even though I took Minnesota to win to play in the Big Ten championship game this year before the season began, and I really like what's going on there. The wide receivers are the best 2 wide receivers in the Big Ten. They're very underrated. They really broke out against Purdue. I see no reason that won't continue here, but Minnesota has struggled a little bit in this spot. They're 1-9 against the spread last 10 as a Big Ten home favorite of 5 points or more. And again, that's a big 14-point number. Illinois beat Minnesota last year 55-31 as a 9-point home dog. And Minnesota is 0-2 against the spread at home this year. Illinois also had a week to prepare. I'll take Illinois plus the 14. Navy Air Force. Okay, we finally get one of these games this year. Hammond against Perry. Hopefully they're both healthy throughout the game. They'll give us the best game possible. Air Force 3.5. I can understand why, but look, if Perry plays the whole game, you know what I feel about Navy. They're a very good football team with that kid as long as he stays healthy. This is going to be a good football game if they both can play. 2-1 Air Forces against Navy in the last 3 years. They've also covered all 3 games. Arkansas State, Georgia State. Just want to mention this game because remember last week we told you about the kid, Lane Hatcher, the Alabama transfer, the high school Arkansas phenom. Watch out. We don't know what to expect. And boy, did he have a big game against Troy. He threw for 440 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. Wide receiver Omar Bayless might be a sleeper NFL prospect. He leads the nation right now in yards per game. He's got 6'3", he's got some size, and he's having a great season. So Arkansas State's much better than Georgia State, even though Georgia State has the upset against Tennessee. Here are some trends that favor Arkansas State. Georgia State has dropped 5 straight covers versus opponents off a straight-up dog win. They're 1-5 ATS, last 6 home dog. And they're 0-8 against the spread, last 8 home dog of more than 5 points. Throw in the fact that the Red Wolves are 12-2 against the spread the last 14 as a road favorite of 3 or more points off a straight-up win. I don't know if I'm going to make it 30 minutes. Let's go to more 3:30 games. Western Michigan, Toledo. We're taking Toledo -1. They've beaten Western Michigan the last 2 years straight up and against the spread by an 88-34 margin. The Broncos are 0-9 against the spread in their last 9 games with revenge off a straight-up win versus an opponent off a straight-up ATS win. I think this is one of those games where the home team is the winner. That's kind of why I'm going with Toledo. I think they're not getting any respect here by only being a 1-point favorite, too. Another MAC game, we're going with the home team, Buffalo. And why not? The home team in the Ohio-Buffalo series has won 9 straight games. So I'll stick with a trend that's pretty powerful by 18.3 points per game. Not only are the home team winning the series 9 straight, they're killing the other team 9 straight. Ohio's on a 3-game losing streak for the first time since 2015. And Frank Solitz, for whatever reason, he doesn't do a good job getting his team prepared after a bye. 2-10 against the spread, last 12 away with rest. Oh, by the way, Lance Leopold, 9-3 against the spread as a home dog. Don't forget, home dog Temple, a couple weeks ago, they blew out the Owls. Let's see. Auburn, Florida, 3:30. This is the best game of them all. 2.5-point spread. Bo Nix had finally his breakout performance. Of course, he's made some big plays, but he had a great statistical game, putting up yards, throwing touchdown passes against Mississippi State. First meeting with the Gators since 2011. ESPN Game Day crew will be out there. I like Auburn. This is actually a 3-star pick for me. You got Trask. First, look, he's doing a good job, but he's got to go up against that Auburn defense. He hasn't faced anything like this yet. Big stage, Auburn defense. I don't think he's going to be ready for it. I don't. Nix has already played in some big games. Auburn's rolling. They're a better team than Florida. Georgia Tech, North Carolina, big injuries for Georgia Tech. Number 1 wide receiver out for the year. Starting center out for the year. 2 of their 3 quarterbacks are banged up. 10-point spread is kind of big. I don't know about North Carolina in this spot. They haven't been in this spot all year. But, we all know North Carolina is a much better team than Georgia Tech. And as long as they don't kind of have any Clemson hangover, they should be able to cover the 10. Northwestern, Nebraska. Now, Northwestern, I kind of moved away from them after the Michigan State game. And then what happened the 1 week I moved away from them? They had their best game of the year. And they made that Wisconsin game closer than Wisconsin would have liked. So you got to figure, with that offense, how did they do it? Well, that's the whole reason why if people are saying the same thing this week, you shouldn't. Because I don't care if their offense is this or that, and their number 1 wide receiver's out, and the quarterback's no good, and he's banged up. I don't even know if he's going to start, and the running back's banged up. I don't care about all that. The fact is that Pat Fitzgerald, once again, knows how to get his teams ready on the road as a dog. They have covered 16 of 20 as a road dog, including 1-1 this year. Now, remember the loss was my 5-star pick week 1 against Stanford. Remember how I lost that one? When Hunter Johnson got sacked with 20 seconds to go and the ball rolls into the end zone and the offensive lineman can't recover it. All you got to do is kick the ball out of the end zone, and Stanford recovered the ball in the end zone, and Stanford covered on me. That was the cover. So you throw that ridiculousness out, and they came back and covered against Wisconsin. So, look, Nebraska proved last week. They've been proving it all year. They're a fraud. They've done nothing this year. They barely beat Illinois. They barely beat South Alabama. They've not done anything this year. They got destroyed last week. Their top pass rusher's out this week. He was suspended for punching an Ohio State player in last week's game. The home team in the series is 0-5-1 against the spread in the last 6. Nebraska hasn't beaten Northwestern the last couple of years. I'm getting 7 here and plus 230 on the money line. So needless to say, I'm taking Northwestern. I'm back on the Wildcats for at least a week. Troy, Missouri. This is my top double-digit upset of the week. I'm taking a Troy team that's 9-0-2 against the spread. Their last 11 as a road dog. I'm also taking a Troy team. They beat Nebraska as a 10-point road dog last year. They beat LSU, don't forget that, in 2017 as a 20-point road dog. And they lost to number 2 Clemson in 2016 as a 35-point road dog. Lost the game by 6 points. Now, it was under Neil Brown. We'll get to him in a minute. Neil Brown's in West Virginia. He's not at Troy. But Missouri is playing their 4th straight at home. They have not been on the road since week 1. Next week's homecoming. So the way I look at it, you kind of can get complacent when you're home that much as a kid. And they've been winning. Not that they've beaten anybody worth anything. And so you get a big head. Oh, homecoming's next week. So I'm preparing for homecoming next week. I'm not worried about this Sun Belt team this year. We're 24-point favorite. Well, this is a team that didn't beat Wyoming. Why can't Troy come in there and beat them? At the very least, remember, 9-0-2 against the spread. Last 11 as a road dog, taking Troy. All right, Arizona and Colorado. This is a really nice under-the-radar Pac-12 game. And Colorado's doing a nice job getting turnovers if they continue to do that. And maybe they will if the true freshman is in his first road game. So keep an eye on that. The kid Gunnell had a good first game against UCLA, but this is different. You go on the road. So and since Colorado likes turnovers, they've got a defensive coach now. Then that's something to keep an eye on. Also, Arizona 3-13 against the spread last 16 as a road dog, and 0-6 against the spread last 6 away versus teams that are 500 or better in the Pac-12. So keep an eye on injuries for both teams. Tate and Taylor for Arizona, Chenault and Chris Miller, and Mustafa Johnson for Colorado. So these are some, especially Johnson and Chenault and Tate and Taylor. These are some big-time players for both teams. By the way, Colorado will be playing Oregon at Oregon on Friday night, next Friday night, a week from today. Let's see, what else? Let's roll to the Texas-West Virginia game. Neil Brown. Hey, what about this? He's 10-5-2 against the spread as a dog. Like his old Troy days, of course. He's 1-1 here at West Virginia in that role. They're getting 11 against Texas. Texas has got Oklahoma next week. How does Texas do in that spot? They've only covered 1 of their last 8 looking ahead to Oklahoma. West Virginia has beaten Texas 3 out of the last 4 years. So I'm taking West Virginia in that one. By the way, they're plus 340 on the money. I'm not going to go that way, but I'll take the 11. Now, interesting, I'm a big UAB Eastern Michigan guy as far as, the little teams that cover and do a great job in that respect. This week, not only did I take Central Michigan against Eastern, but I'm taking Rice against UAB. Rice, I like the way they're playing. Mike Bloomgren, we talked about them earlier in the year when we picked them against Army to cover in that one. I think they're starting to now get into the system there under Bloomgren. I'm starting to see something nice developing at Rice there. They've covered 7 out of 9 as a road dog under Bloomgren. They're also facing a UAB team that's 2-12-1 against the spread as a favorite of 10 or less. Right now the line is, 9, I believe? But UAB is 6-1-1 against the spread. Last 8 is a home favorite, and they cover more than anything over the last couple of years. This is not something I normally would do, but I just kind of feel that this is a good spot for Rice. Michigan State, Ohio State, big game, 20-point spread, 7th-ranked defense against the 8th-ranked offense. I know Michigan State the defense had a little blip issue last week. That's what I think it is, a blip on the radar. And I think I'm going to draw a line through that. I expect they're going to play a lot better this week against Ohio State on defense. It's a big spread. I'm taking the 20. I'm not going with the money line. But it'll be interesting to see what happens if it's a close game at halftime and how Fields and the rest of the team, especially Fields, responds. He's going to have to respond sooner or later in a close game. By the way, Michigan State will play Wisconsin on the road next week. How about that? Back-to-back games. Also, SEC at 7 o'clock. Georgia, Tennessee. The Bulldogs are 13-5 against the spread. Their last 18 road favorite spots, including 1-0 this year. This is only their second road game of the year. They beat Vandy week 1. By the way, also Tennessee 0-3 against the spread this year. Memphis, UL Monroe. This is Mitch's sleeper Sun Belt team, and this is also his upset play of the week. I see where he's going. Memphis probably should have lost against Navy if Perry didn't get hurt. Monroe had the big game against Florida State. They've got some weapons. They're a 14, 15-point dog. They're almost 5-1 on the money line, and the trends work in their favor. 9-1 Monroe against the spread last 10 as dogs off a double-digit straight-up win, while Memphis is 1-10 ATS last 11 away versus opponent off a double-digit straight-up win. So maybe you don't go the money line route, but the 15 might be the ticket. Now, SMU, this is my top group of 5 team. I've been saying that the last couple of weeks. I'm really hammering it home now, so don't let me down, SMU. They're taking on Tulsa. It's a 12.5-point spread. They get the bye next week, SMU, and then they go up against Temple, Houston, and Memphis. So it starts to get really interesting for SMU. I just think they're for real. Sonny Dykes, I think he's got a perfect team of transfers, veteran players, Shane Buechele at quarterback, and they lead the nation in sacks. This is not your yesterday's SMU team, all offense, no defense, or that kind of thing. This is a complete football team. Now, I don't think Tulsa is a bad team. I just really like SMU. And if SMU is as good as I think they are, in other words, I think they're on the level almost of being the top team where UCF is. If that's the case and they're at home, I shouldn't worry about 12 points. I'm not saying they're blowing them out. The last 3 years in this series have been close. But I'm just going to roll with a team that's been very good to me. They've covered all 5 this year. Pitt, Duke. We only got a few minutes left because I'm already over. Duke, favorite by 5, but I'm taking Pitt. Pitt has won 4 straight up and against the spread in this series the last 4 years by 76 points. They don't just beat and cover Duke. They beat up Duke, and yet they're getting 5. Now, I've been taking Duke the last couple of times, and they've been good to me, but that's been in different situations. This is a situation Duke is not good at. They're 4-12, last 16 against the spread as a home favorite. This is the only time they've been a home favorite against an FBS team this year. So I'll take Pitt plus the 5. Pickett's healthy. Just wanted to quickly say this about UTEP. They're a 1.5-point favorite against Texas San Antonio. UTEP is 2-26, the last 28, straight up. And, yeah, they're the favorite. Okay, well, road team has covered 6 straight in the series, though. California, Oregon, I think Cal's going to keep this game within the 18. I can't see them winning, though, unless the freshman, Brosh, they got Spencer Brosh, true freshman. If he does something like the Arkansas State kid did and surprises everybody, because the defense is still very good at Cal, Oregon's defense is very good. Oregon's receivers are getting healthier. They're a better team, but Cal beat Washington last year with nothing on offense. That's why I kind of think they can keep the point spread intact. Look, they're 8-4 against the spread as a road dog under Wilcox. Cal is. And they're 2-2 this year. They beat Mississippi straight up as a road dog, and, of course, they beat Washington as a road dog this year. Now, they did it both with Garbers. I get it. But that's why the point spread's 18. If Garbers was there, it would be a lot smaller. Wrapping up the last couple of games, stick in the Pac-12, Oregon State, UCLA. I'm a little bit surprised it's 6, but I'm going to stay away from the game because DTR's got an ankle injury, may not play. Even though Austin Burton played well unlike Modster for California, who was awful. That's why I mentioned the freshman at Cal, because Modster, if he plays the whole game for Cal, I mean, Oregon will probably destroy him. But Austin Burton, I wouldn't be too worried that they'd be able to win this football game. Oregon State, they've been putting yards up. They got to learn to win. They haven't done that yet, and it doesn't help that their best defender, Jalen Moore, has been banged up all year with a hamstring injury. We don't even know if he's going to play in this one. Colorado State, I've been talking about them the last couple of weeks. I'm going to ride them again. I'm going to say upset here, plus 260. Marvin Kinsey, fifth in the nation on yards on the ground per game. They lose Warren Jackson possibly for this week with an injury. Didn't play last week, but the true freshman, Dante Wright, has played well. And the Rams are 4-1 against the spread their last 5 as a home dog, including covering Toledo. San Diego State is a 7.5-point favorite here. Juwan Washington has not been healthy all year. He's missed the last 2 with an ankle injury. The offense can't afford to lose anything. Conflicting trend that might hurt me. The Aztecs have covered 7 straight as a road favorite of less than 12 points versus losing teams. Boise State, UNLV, Rogers and Charles Williams will be healthy from what we understand. You never know in college, but that's what we hear for the game this week. Conflicting trends. The Rebels have covered 7 straight as dogs of less than 27 off a straight-up ATS loss. Boise, 6-2-1 ATS last 9 as a road favorite. They haven't been on the road since Florida State. And then Washington, Stanford, that's it. Washington's favorite by 16. No KJ Costello. He's out again with a thumb injury. Still lots of offensive line injuries. David Mills did play well last week, but that was Oregon State. If I took the game, I'd probably take Washington, but don't forget, against Oregon, the game was pretty close. So that's why I'm staying away from this one. That'll wrap it up. Hope you liked it. Trends, injury updates, odds, picks. That's all. Hopefully I couldn't get it under 30. I tried, but I got to get out of here because I'm getting close to 40. So we'll see you again next week with more college football talk with Mitch Light, and then of course we'll talk more college football with Dave Koken on Tuesdays as well. So don't forget that. Dave Koken from Covers.com. More college football talk with him. NFL talk with Mark Lawrence, and so much more coming up here on the Our Lads Football Radio Network. We're just imagining shows, and then as we imagine them, poof, they come out on the screen here and make it available for you on the websites at ourlads.com, primesportsnetwork.com. Follow us at PrimeSN, by the way, on Twitter, too. We'll let you know when the shows are out immediately when we tweet them out. And that's it. Enjoy the games, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.